Hello everybody. It is Thursday, the 9th of January. Now I want to make this video about a verse in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4. It is a verse that a subscriber gave me yesterday, and what do I think about that? And I started thinking about it, and yesterday, dear God, did I get into a spin. I'm in complete and utter chaos. First of all, I looked at it and I thought that's straightforward. I just make a video about it, and I thought about it a bit more, and in the end I was like, what the hell? So I had to give up even thinking about it yesterday. I was just, I thought, sleep on it. You know, that's what I do, sleep on it. See what comes in the morning. And actually this morning I have clarity of what this is actually about, the whole thing. Kind of, what was Paul doing? What was Jesus doing? What is this whole thing actually about? Right. Jesus said, I came to save the Jews through the bringing of knowledge. I bring knowledge of the Father, of the Creator. Yeah? And I show you the way to life. That is what Jesus was doing. Now, let me just read this verse in Corinthians. So that is 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4. In whom the God of this world has blinded the mind, who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. Yeah? So this is what Paul is saying, and you really must look at who is talking and what their intentions are to understand where they're coming from. So this is Paul's gospel. This is Paul's gospel, my gospel, Paul's gospel, that will lead to the coming of New Jerusalem in the book of the Revelation. That is where this should lead us. That was his destination. He was a servant of New Jerusalem, and he would bring it to earth. That is what he would bring, that heaven to earth. That was Paul's intention. So, and he was preaching to the Gentiles. Yeah? This is spiritual. This is working it on a spiritual level. This is the energy of thought and emotions. And he's using the Gentiles as power pack, as the energy pack, to create this reality. So, in whom the God of this world has blinded the mind who do not believe. Again, Paul does not only have to direct the Gentiles toward New Jerusalem, the Christians, but he also has to bring them to reject this world. So it's actually working two ways. So, and here is this Satan boogeyman in this world. You know, the evil God that is ruling over this world, you know, that has blinded the mind. It has blinded your mind inside of you. You can no longer see the truth. You are imprisoned in this reality, in this world. And again, those that preach that now, they are actually the followers of Paul. Again, they are preaching Paul. Thoughts do evolve all the time. Yeah, and they take different forms. But in essence, when people say, well, even if they talk about the archons, you know, this is an evil world created by the archon, they are preaching Paul. That was Paul's story. The evil, the fall of man, the evil of this world. Let me say just one more, say it again. You will know them by their fruit. You know the God of this world by what it has created. And you must look at the reality of this world. what it actually is. And as I said before, and I will keep saying it, you see it in nature. If you say that everything is consciousness, everything is energy, what we read as solid reality is in fact energy. An energy created by consciousness. Then what you see in the different forms, in the diversity of nature, is different forms of consciousness and different levels of consciousness that come together to create a whole. Every level of consciousness, and in this world there is no separation between the levels, because one level depends on the other, receives of the other, as everything is intertwined. Yeah? So here you have, and every bit is what it is. Yeah, every bit of nature. A tree is a tree, an animal is an animal. Various animals are different forms of consciousness, different ways of perception, different ways of knowing, yet they all work together. That is this world. They all work together, they've come together in what we call ecosystems, and everything in the ecosystem is sustained. That is the reality of this world. Yeah, and I do not see the evil satanic boogeyman in that. Where is he? What is wrong with that? It is the diversity of this world is difficult to negotiate, to navigate your way through it. It's difficult, but it's not bad. And I would say it was built on a very good intention. That all, see, God is an intention to bring together consciousness, to interact, to cooperate, to live together. That is the intention. That is not the satanic boogeyman that Paul is describing. He's not here. He's just that. He's a boogeyman. To scare, to drive you into the desire to get out of this world and to be saved. You know, that you have the feeling to be saved. That you need to be saved. It is a sheep herding tactic. That's the dog snapping at your heel, you know, creating fear, driving you into a certain direction. That story. But, okay. But we are spiritual beings. We always have been. I mean, again, you can base that on known history. Spiritual practices were always there until Christianity put an end to it. But from the earliest cave paintings, what were they doing? They were connecting to spirit. They were connecting to the spirit of this world, the spirit of the animal. All nature, what we call nature religions, did that. They were spiritual practices, connecting to this world in spirit. So again, to say that we are just in the material is wrong. We're not. We never have been. We were spiritual from the start. Anyway, so, but that's his Paul, yeah? He's creating this bad world, boogeyman, the fallen nature of man, and we all must be saved. And that God has blinded those that are in this world and of this world. They are blinded to the reality, of the glorious reality of New Jerusalem, the truth of God. Yeah? Right. So this is what Paul is doing. So what is Jesus doing? That is the next thing. What is he? I came to save the Jews. Again, Jesus actually brought back the knowledge of the reality of spirituality. That is what happened in the miracles. the reality of spirituality, the power of the Spirit to create, and that power is within us, is within all of us. Again, he brought that back as a reality. He also, through the way of the cross and the experience, that his experience of New Jerusalem, that he related that experience back to John to tell to all. He also, that is proof. This is scientific, the way of going there, experiencing it as a reality. The reality of God, the reality of New Jerusalem, that can be reached, can be experienced through the spiritual path. So that is, he brought to the Jews the reality again of spirituality. That is what he showed. That is the knowledge he brought to the temple. Because at that time the temple had gone full on material. They were no longer spiritual. And they rejected his teaching. And they got rid of it. They got rid of him. They tried to get rid of the rest of the Christians. Now, here is why did the temple reject him? Did they not believe? Well, I would say some of them, as I said, the temple had gone full on material. Yeah, the animal sacrifice and everything else, it was big business. Yeah, there was a lot of money to be made in that. So, yes, they may no longer have believed on the reality of what it is they're believing on. Another reason, and Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says about the priests that they are like dogs lying on the cattle's manger. Yeah, they don't eat the food themselves. They don't eat of the food. But they're preventing everybody else from getting at it. Again, they have the old scrolls. They have the old text. They have the knowledge. They're sitting on it. But they're not doing it. Why? One reason may well be that they were looking at their own scrolls by that time, the way that we look at the Nag Hammadi scriptures. They didn't understand the half of it anymore. The knowledge was lost. To me, that is totally possible. They didn't understand themselves. Or they did understand, and they did understand that you can open a portal, let's say it like this, a portal into that other reality, and that Yahweh could return. Their God Yahweh could return. And they're trying everything to prevent that. Why would they want to prevent that? Well, look at the history of Yahweh. Why on earth would you want that back? See, that's where the Christians are totally deluded, but I'm coming to that in a minute. If you look at the reality, again, at the reality of the history of Yahweh being in this world and them connected to him, it was full-on slaughter, and they were ruled over. Again, in the book of the Revelation, you will be ruled over again. Why on earth would they want that back? If you are a human being of sound mind, you wouldn't want that. So maybe they were preventing spirituality altogether. That is to keep people deliberately in the material, to prevent the return of Yahweh. They believed it was real, and they were trying to keep it from happening by keeping people occupied in the material. But of course that way was not working in a good way, because it created a material world of the reality of the temple then, wholesale slaughter of animals, and it does not create a good material world. You have to keep people in, basically keep them sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah, and animal slaughter and everything else. It does not create a good material world. So that way of just keeping them in the material wasn't good either. So where is the way of the middle? And that is actually what Jesus preached. And here is, in a way, Paul is not wrong when he says, in whom the world has blinded the mind who do not believe. And that is if your energy, if your thoughts are in this world. Again, it depends on where you focus your energy. Focus on each other. Love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah? And Jesus, again, he showed the power of the Spirit, the healings and all of that. But whilst our focus is on each other and on this world, and our energies are reconnecting to this world, we're becoming spiritual again, but we are connecting inside of this world, to the spirit of this world, to the consciousnesses of this world, to each other. And once our energies are fully occupied in this world, we will be blind. We will not know what is outside of us. And that means you can be spiritual in this world without bringing back Yahweh. In fact, it would prevent the return of Yahweh. Because the energy of the people is completely disconnected from Him, but focused on each other. And in that way, He would save the Jews. And again, He's saving the Jews from the return of Yahweh. He's saving them from the return of Yahweh by preaching, love your neighbor as yourself, focus on each other, see each other, hold on to each other. Don't even let your thoughts stray into the possibility of that other realm. But again, bringing the reality of spirituality, both sides. And you see, that was a question for me for very long. If you go into spirituality, would you open the door to those other realms? Because that's, again, something I don't want to go. You know, I have no intention of knowing what is out there. So again, now let's bring Paul back. So that is what Jesus is preaching. He's saving the Jews through spirituality, by turning them away, preventing the return of Yahweh. So, Paul is a servant of Yahweh. He wants to bring, that is the whole point, it's the whole point of Christianity. You will be saved. Yeah, again, you are in this evil world, you must be saved. Jesus will come back with the Borg cube. Yeah? You can no longer, he is now a part of that. You can no longer separate the two. He is coming back with his Borg cube. So I say the Jews have rejected that for whatever reason. And he's teaching this as salvation to the Christians, to the Gentiles. And here comes, the Gentiles do not have the foundation of knowledge of the whole story. At that time, they did not have the whole story of Yahweh. Because that was a Jewish thing. That was definitely a Jewish thing, and Jews kept to themselves. Yeah, they did not tell others. So most Christians would probably never even have heard the story of Yahweh until Paul came and taught them that as good. He taught that as good, as salvation, something you really need to desire. Whereas from a Jewish understanding, it was probably something you shouldn't desire. You know, they had the experience being ruled over by Yahweh, and it was not a good thing. The Christians would not have had that foundational understanding. They did not have that history. The Jews kept to themselves. They weren't spreading the story around the place. So the Christians, the Gentiles, were as children. They had no knowledge, no prior knowledge. And they were indoctrinated at that moment to say, that is good. That is where you should go. You must be saved. You're in a bad place. That's what Paul did. So, and then really, the last question is, do you believe? Do you believe in the reality of spirituality? Do you believe this can actually be done? And again, open your eyes to the truth of what it is you're bringing into this world. Now, do you believe it's real? Do you have to believe it's real? That's another thing. Do you actually have to believe? Because Christians are working their energies. Their energy is focused, their mind, again, is no longer in this world. It's focused on New Jerusalem. Their desire is focused on New Jerusalem. This is a prayer. Do you believe on the power of prayer? And then to say, in the all there's no judgment. In the field there is no judgment. It does not judge whether it is good or bad. I mean, we should be the judges. So can it work anyway? As long as you believe that you have received it, it will come. Again, do you believe? I think Paul did. Jesus knew. He experienced. He knew the reality of Yahweh. He knew the reality of spirituality in this world. Paul believed, and he was working it. So there we go. Do you believe that it is real? That is the question. So, I mean, that this is, to me, this is what is happening in that story. And again, Christians, you are a part of that story. You are now a working part of that story. Do you actually understand the story that you're in? Right, okay, no, here's one last thing, and this is, do you understand the story you're in? Because I can hear at the moment Christians that are proclaiming the truth of Jesus and that are separating from Paul. Yeah? That are saying Paul was the false prophet. We are going with the truth of Jesus, and Jesus proclaimed, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah? The love, he proclaimed love, compassion, all of those things. And then they say, and the way is the denial of self. Again, you have not understood. The denial of self is the way to New Jerusalem. The detachment from the spiritual reality of this world, and that is our energetic attachment to each other. The love for each other, the love of this world. The detachment from that is the denial of self. Because that is what we are right now. We are that. So you detach from that. You are no longer energetically connected to this world. And then it will open your eyes to another reality. So the denial of self is the way to New Jerusalem. It is not the way to healing. Because quite simply, if you want to love your neighbor as yourself, there needs to be a self there that loves the neighbor. And if you deny yourself, if you do away with self, there's nothing there to love the neighbor. What is loving the neighbor if yourself does not exist, if you have done away with it? The denial of self is not the way to compassionate healing. Yeah. So yes, you are seeing Jesus in the correct way, and that is the way to salvation. If our energies are concentrated in this world, on each other, on nature, on the reality that we're in. That is the way to salvation. It is the way to healing, and it will keep out the other realities. But the denial of self is the way out of this reality. So you're proclaiming the truth of Jesus, of love your neighbor as yourself, but you're still on the way of Paul to New Jerusalem. That is because you have not understood. To Christians, it's all one thing, and it is not. They are two distinct, separate paths that will lead ways of doing things. Things that you are doing. Again, it's nothing that is done to you. You are doing it. These are your energies that are creating, so you are doing it. And there were two distinct different paths that will lead to two different outcomes. And again, in the mind of Jesus and in the understanding of the Jews, apart from Paul, who was a complete servant of New Jerusalem, but in the understanding of most Jews at that time, Yahweh, God, was something you needed to be saved from. He was not the salvation, he was that you needed to be saved from. That should not come, that he should not return. He's a violent God. He's a jealous God. He's something that wants to rule over. They're trying to keep him out, not bring him in. And again, Christians are in the delusion. They're calling good evil and evil good. Or they're thinking they're doing good, but they are on the path to that other reality. This is why we need to understand. And really, it is a question, do you believe on the reality of this? Yeah, not just lip service, not fairy tales, not something that is just creating something in this world, which it does, but that there is another dimension to this, another reality to this. Do you believe that is real? And then you should really, really, really start thinking about what it is you're doing and understand this story correctly. Paul spun to you that New Jerusalem is good, whereas as a human being you should know that is evil. Anyway, here, I leave it at that for today. I hope this made sense. And I talk to you again soon. Bye.